Yeah, g'day guys. On the channel today we're going to try and get this engine mounted properly on the chassis and then see what we've got to cut out to get the body fitted. Here we go. This is where we were when we left off the other day. I've been making these engine mounts. These are the ones that they're actually standard engine mounts for a Javelin, I believe, an AMC Javelin. So I thought, well, the engine could go on a Javelin, so I thought, let's make engine mounts that suit the same. So I've made these engine plates, and they just bolt up exactly on. They bolt up exactly on there. It's a bit hard to see. So they bolt on there nicely, and then I've got this plate that just goes straight on there. So then when I do work out exactly where it's going to be located, I can put a piece of tube straight off of here or down, depends on exactly what angle it's going to sit on. Now the other side wasn't so easy. I had to make a spacer or riser, however you want to call it. So that is on the block, and then I had to space it away from the block because this was fouling with the sump, and that there was a bit of a problem. It was in the way of the extractor. I'll just show you. So that sits in there. See, the extractor is relatively close there. So, but we've got it away from it. If that sort of shows you a bit better. So we've got it away from the block a little bit on this side, and it's away from the extractor. Now I nearly wasn't going to make this one like that, because I may or may not be able to use these extractors. Because I don't really want to have to put the motor so far back. I can if I had to, but we'll sort of see. So we'll roll it outside in a minute, and I'll bolt all these on so they're all in place. I'm going to move the whole motor back and down about where I want it to sort of sit, and have a look at it, and then see if it's going to be difficult for every other aspect in the world. Being like how much of the body I have to cut out of it, which I didn't really want to do, but if I have to, I will. So, and then I will unbolt these extractors. Gary from AMC Restoration said that he's got some standard manifolds that I could try, and there's also a set of, I think he calls them sort of like block huggers, I think they're called. They're much shorter, and they just sort of finish here, and then you can have a really sharp pipe and go out of the way. So then it doesn't foul with the chassis. Like this side here, it's virtually touching, and the other side, well, yeah, it's not good. So it'd have to go back a long way with those pipes. Actually, I think those extractors come off of Javelin, AMC Javelin. Nice big two-door. Sort of looks like in Australia they're very similar to a XA coupe, Falcon hardtop coupe. Very similar style, and they have the 360 in it. So. Oh, some of them have 400s, I suppose. But anyway, enough AMC history lesson. Let's get this rolled out. I'll quickly bolt these on, and then we'll roll this chassis out at least to the edge of the doorway here, and I'll use my little digger as a crane, sort of get it a bit further in and lower it down, and we'll see how it looks. Give us a minute, and we'll get into that. Here we go. Hello. I think you're in. Where else was I gonna be? So Gary's come with gifts.
G'day, Jim.
Here we go. See? There we go. There's some manifolds. Oh, and some broken ones.
Well, you know, you said you were an expert welder, so, you know, you said you were going to weld it back for me.
Yeah, I'll do
We'll
that.
see.
I'll do that anyway. That's no trouble. Anyway, let's get back into some more work. What's the right word? We've got it sort of as good as it's going to be with these pipes. I'm really not liking it. Like, I mean, the first few things I've got pretty close to good alignment for drive shaft. That's no trouble. And this side on over here, the dog leg out of the transmission, the transfer case, misses the torsion bar for the front suspension. Okay, we're touching the extractor to the chassis there. It's not good. And the other side is the same. So we're touching there. I can't go any more forward without forcing it in there or trying to bend those extractors. It's not really ideal. The cross member, the original Toyota transmission cross member, and that's all unboltable. So we can remove that and move it somewhere else, because I'm pretty sure that's where it bolts up anyway there for the transmission on this one, on the AW4. There's a block of wood just under there at the moment. That's sort of, and same with here, it's just under the sump. And that's only just to make it sit there. But if you think about it, see this post here and the one on the other side? That's where it mounts under the cab here. Like right here, it bolts onto there. And if you think about it, that's sort of where the firewall kind of starts, like, I mean, about 30-40 mil from this bump. So if you go from the center hole, you'd have to be looking at 60-70 mil. And you go back to here, and where from here, we'd have to be a good 200 mil on the other side. So this one, that's about where the firewall is. Oh shit, we're half the motor under the firewall, which makes things a lot difficult. I don't mind cutting out a little bit if I had to, but I'd be pretty much cutting out from up here all the way down to here, and then going all the way, oh, we'd be way under here somewhere. This set of pipes is not ideal and will not work. So as much as I loved having a really nice set of extractors, it's not going to work that way. So we'll sling it back up, we'll put it on the old shackle again. Did you notice I had a pivot, like, I mean, the hook actually turns inside there? I thought that would be really handy, and sort of, it's good and bad. Bad because I'm stuck by myself, and good because we can actually turn it at any angle. So it's just a bit of mucking around, but that's just the way it goes. Anyway, so I'll swap over those manifolds. I'll sling that, lift it a little bit, and then swap over the manifolds, and then see how far forward we can move it. If you look at the angle of the transmission up here, down, we're way up here, down to the diff doodad there, where you bolt on the tail shaft, that's too much of an angle. And I think we'd be blowing unis really quick. I don't think it's out of the realm of reality, but yeah, it's just not ideal. So there's too many things that aren't ideal. And I'm not sure if anyone has noticed yet, this Jeep transfer case brings out the leg on this side for the front shaft, the output shaft for the front diff, and the Toyota is on the other side, because that's just the way they are. So in another video, I'm going to have to move that diff from this side to this side. So hang around for that. It won't be in this video, but we will get to that because I have to. There's no other option. So we can have the drive shaft, there it is under there, so it can be on this side of the motor. And that's the other problem that we have with these extractors. At that height that we are, I could lower it a bit more, but those extractors are designed to go under the transmission crossmember, and I can't get it any lower there because of the extractors, so too many things stopping it. So let's get those pipes off. So I'll stop rambling and we'll actually we'll do a bit of mucking around. Here we go. Doesn't look as fancy as a nice set of extractors, but I think it's more about functionality at the minute, to try and get it into the engine bay probably. Okay, so let's move this back and see where we go, see how far forward we can get it. Like in a perfect world, I'd really like to try and get these, the factory engine mounts, all the way up to Toyota engine mount, because that would be very, very close then to suit the engine bay of the little Lancer. So let's get into that. Here we go. Okay, we've sort of got it really close. There's the engine mount under there to the factory Toyota one, and what we were talking about before from this point, which bolts onto the body, and where it's located about 50-60 mil, we are really close. So really close to there, and I've still got to go down a lot, especially this end. This end's got to come down, which then gives us another little bit of a problem of that's the exit of the exhaust. I think that one will be okay, because we can even mount it at that height. It doesn't have to go down any further, because if you look, the sump is only a matter of it's about 40 mil from the diff, and especially if we move the diff from one side to the other, doesn't really matter, I suppose. And this side, the spacer that I made, the pack out or whatever you want to call it, it's really close. But have a look at where that exhaust pipe comes out. That is just on, this is the top A arm, the suspension arm, wishbone, whatever you want to call them. Anyway, it's right on top of it. That's going to make it really difficult. Unless we go across, can we go across to the other side a bit? Like, are we still in the middle? No. So we could come across a bit. So if we go across, that would be so close. But I can't really go down. So I'd have to go up a bit for that flange and everything to work. And we can't really go across much more on this side because it hits that body mount. Okay, so a bit more fiddling, but we're okay over here. Oh, there we go. That's about where I wanted it, actually. Okay, I think we're close. I've had to just hook the extra engine crane on just for a bit of stability and try and get one end at a time. Like, this exhaust side will sort of be okay. Like, it'll be a heck of a sharp corner coming out of there, or a crossways. But I think we might run into trouble with the starter motor. So the starter motor goes in there. See, there we go. Starter motor goes there. And I think where it's not going to work there, so I can't move the starter motor, it has to be there. So I'm thinking we have to go up a bit more, but like, that's only just a block of wood under the crank there. So this side's better, much better. I can actually make that work. So I think we just got to go up a little bit more, pop the starter in, and then see where it goes from there. Yeah, I think we'll do that. We'll lift it up and then put the starter in, and then that'll be our next contributing factor. So hang on, there we go. Okay, starter motor's in, as you can see. and I've been mucking around with this, trying to get it across and up and down and forward, and I think it's forward enough. It'd be nicer if it came more forward, but there's a problem there with the starter. I think if I can get the camera in there, hang on, I can get the camera in there. See how close that starter main lead is to that suspension bolt? That's not ideal. We either got to go down or across, or both. It'd be nice if it went across, like to the passenger side. This side actually is okay. I'd be able to work with that pipe to get it down that way. But I think I'm option number 3 for the pipes, the exhaust manifold, and that's this one. This is a log manifold for this engine. Very restrictive, not very exciting. Would be ideal if I had turbocharging or anything like that, because it's kind of, it would just suit very well, because these are symmetrical. You could actually turn them this way and have it come out the front at the top there, which would be really good to work out manifolds for turbocharging. But anyway, we're not in this particular instance, so Gary's coming over in a minute with the one for the other side. So then that should alleviate a few of the problems, because if you think about it, that's about where it's going to go. So I can go heaps more forward, and that's the angle there. So I can go heaps more forward where the exhaust actually comes out, and I'm not sure about the one on the other side for the log manifold, but we'll sort of see where it comes out. But I would have thought it'd be very similar. So we got to go across, and down would be nice to help that angle. It's a little bit too peaky like that, and I don't really want to increase the back end up much, because then we're going to have trouble with that angle down to the diff, to the pinion on the diff. So we still got a bit of room underneath, which is good. It's hard to tell. Oh, we've got the clearance under the sump there, so we've got about 40 mil we could go down if need be, irrelevant of whichever side that we put the diff on. Anyway, I'll swap over that manifold on this side, and I'll wait for Gary to turn up from AMC Restorations to give us a hand, and then we can bring it forward and down and across and have all sorts of fun. So here we go. Okay, that looks heaps better. Won't flow as well, but it looks heaps better. Anyway, I'll do the other one off camera, and when Gary gets here, and we'll see how it fits. Here we go. Oh, moves easy. A little close. Around there. Okay. Let's see if it fits. So we'll go up with the body.
Go up with the body and give it 2 inches further forward.
We'll have to roll it out though. So up we go.
Up we go again.
Wow, isn't that exciting? Seeing a nice big V8 hanging out the side there under the wheel guard. Don't mind that timber block, that's just keeping the motor level. Yeah, everyone needs a bit of timber in their car. Anyway, so the body is sitting down on the blocks, and so it's sitting down where it's supposed to be, and the back end's all on its locators, and Doesn't that look spectacular? So you see the little bubble there, it's sitting level. So we got tons of room down the front here. So we just like that cross member there, not cross member, the old radiator support. It's coming out anyway, so doesn't need to be there. Then the radiator will fit. We had a bit of a look-see before. We got about 50mm from the firewall. Actually, it's probably a bit less than that. It's probably about 40mm. So nothing actually touches the firewall. At the moment, the chain it's sitting on top of the transmission, but the transmission itself actually clears underneath the tunnel, so we're exceptionally lucky there. These two cables are coming out. They're just the shifter linkage cables for the Lancer itself, because it was a manual. So they're coming out. So this cable here is the original factory Lancer throttle cable, so we'll be able to use that. That'll go to the carby, perfect. Gary and I were just working out the brake lines. We're going to try and see if this master cylinder is going to be big enough. I'm not expecting it to, but it would be just a luck, I guess. I think we're going to run out of stroke because the brakes on the Hilux were much larger discs. So I'm expecting the pistons in there to be bigger. Anyway, so we're going to see if the brakes, once we hook up all the brakes and everything, when we get to that stage. But that's here nor there at the moment. So the old log manifolds, I would have really liked to put extractors in there, but it just won't fit. So you can see the gap between this plate, that plate that I made, and the Toyota original ones is probably about 30mm on this side, only because I made that riser block on it as I showed you before. But there's about 30mm, so I've just got to make a spacer between there, which will be easy. The other side, it's quite a bit more, but see, here's the Toyota one, and here's this one, because it's got 30mm less anyway, because the other one I had the riser on it. So I've just got to make something from here to there. I'll actually make them bolt onto here as well, like onto the factory mounts. I can't move that block of wood because it's holding the motor at the minute. Anyway, so I'll make so I'll make the little plates to bolt onto that, and then they can go up to here. So they won't be very difficult at all. I'll probably do them tomorrow. It's getting a bit late in the day to try and start them now, because I'm gonna have to take the body off again anyway. It's just sitting there and it's located, so anyway, it all fits. Like, I mean, that's awesome. I'm really happy with. And the transmission, like, I mean, it doesn't touch anything. Like, that's just the lifting strap, the purple strap. So that angle's going to be really good from the end of the transmission to the, I can get the camera up there, to the front yoke of the diff. The front one, well, you know, we're going to have to move that diff anyway. So, but everything else, it all looks really good. What else do we need to work out? You can see the bottom of the pulley. There's that. Doesn't that look cool? It fits with lots of room. Like, who said you could never put a V8 in a Lancer? There's tons of room. Yeah, you can't use the original cross member, but who needs that? So there's plenty of room at the front, a couple inches at the back, all the exhaust and everything now fits. The best part, without any massive major modifications, I didn't lose the dash. Not that I needed to keep it, but I didn't. Oh, I can still hook up the stereo. Probably still be able to have the heater. I'll be able to drive this thing around. So there's no major, massive modifications for the body, which is what I really wanted. I didn't want to have to start cutting into the firewall or anything like that. So that's turned out a huge bonus. And thanks to Gary to give me a hand to reshuffle that last little bit and organising those log manifolds for me. It's kind of really handy when you know somebody that's got all the right parts just sitting there and you don't live that real far away. The V8 Lancer post-apocalyptic vehicle thingy, it's happening. Can't quite see the V8 in there. Actually, I'm pretty sure that when we bolt the carby on and the air cleaner and everything else, the original factory bonnet closed. Where's the fun in that? Let's lift this body off again one more time. There'll probably be a heap more time. But anyway, take the body off again and I'll start into those brackets. So I can actually put the crane away. I don't need it no more. Close this big door and get into it. So anyway, let's lift this body off, eh? So let's get into these brackets. I've got a little plate on the original Toyota. There we go, the original Toyota bracket. So I've got the one for this side, and here's the other one. Hopefully that fits that. There we go. So we've got one on either side of those bolts, and it misses all the base bolts, the 2 bolts at the bottom there. So that's one bracket, and that'll hold that securely. And the other one, I've gone a little bit beefier with a piece of 10mm plate, 3/8, and it's bolted down to the original factory Toyota chassis engine mounts. I'll put one on this side, and I can weld it to both pieces and trim off that top piece. It won't need to be there. So trim all that off and do this one on this side. So it'll look a bit janky at the minute, but once I've tacked them all into place, I can lift the motor up, unbolt all the mounts, and then fully weld these plates in. So then that will be the engine fully mounted. So let's get into just tacking all these into place. Then we can focus on the transmission, which will be a headache in itself. Anyway, let's tackle these ones on, eh? Here we go. Okay, so we're all tacked into place. Now I will just unbolt them all and put them on the bench and remove the rubber parts so we don't do any damage to the rubber engine mount parts, and then we can bolt them in. Not for good, but because the motor's got to come out again anyway. So let's get them off the engine and onto the workbench. So here we go. Voila! Now let's just weld them up. Rightio, we've got all these engine mounts and engine plates and adapters and everything all sort of finished. Not a real good paint job, more runs than a Aussie cricket team. Yeah, no one's really going to see it, and as long as it's sort of semi-sealed. They're all ready to go. I'll bolt them together in a jiff. And I just finished welding up all these brackets, all fully welded. And the rear ones, just weld a little bit of something under there. I just didn't want to weld across there. That would be very bad for the chassis. So they're all welded up on both sides, all the way around. So I'll rip this rug off and we'll bolt those engine mounts on, so then we can concentrate on the rear transmission mount. So here we go. Well, they're all bolted in, custom fab. All done. Now we just got to get rid of these blocks, and hopefully they'll come out easy without having to lift the engine up. Oh no, here we go. Okay. Okay, not that easy. This one should come out. There we go. Okay, leave it with me. I'll get this block wood out the front here. Ah, hammer. Hammer will travel. There we go. There we go. All self-supported on its own engine mounts. That took some work, but we got it there. And we still have perfectly level, which is really where we wanted it to be. Okay, so let's fiddle with the rear one. And I've sort of started, cut that plate, drilled a couple of holes in it, and it bolts up nice and easy. There's the test bolts. So what I'm thinking of doing is this cross member, not sure if we can see it, has all these bolt holes. There's 4 bolt holes in it. Some of those have got like captive nuts inside. The other ones are just sort of captive nuts, but on the outside. Anyway, so there are a couple of nuts, just like me, and I'll just unbolt all them. Well, I'll stick a trolley jack under here or something to support the transmission itself, and then I'll unbolt all those. And I'm actually thinking of moving it forward. Here's where the mount is meant to be, and that's over here. So if I can just unbolt that and move it across, we will be perfectly in line, and just redo some little brackets or something to bolt that up to. So it's still an unboltable bracket, and I'm thinking of using one of these. Now this comes off a, keep it in the Toyota family, it's off a Land Cruiser. So I will just use one of those. I'm pretty sure I'll only need one. One block should be plenty. They're actually, the pair of them were off a transmission of a Land Cruiser. So I'm thinking one should be enough, I'm hoping. So I've just got to adapt that, and we're away. And get that cross member off. And then we could probably drop the body again one more time. So anyway, let's get that cross member moved. Okay, so I've got, I went away from the trolley jack. I was going to use the old trolley jack, but I thought, let's try and do it the most sketchiest way I can. So I've got the old engine lifter right out on its furthest pin, and we've got it sort of slung back like this, and it holds the weight. The blocks of wood are just sort of there for the moment. So let's unbolt that other cross member, the factory one, and let's start mocking up what we're going to do. Maybe I might even change my mind and make a complete different one instead of using the factory one, because the factory one goes fairly low and I've got a lot of height to make up. Because if you think about it, it's from there all the way down to there, so that's like 150 mil. Although that engine mount on the bench, sorry, the transmission mount on the bench, it's probably about 60 mil. So maybe it will. Maybe it will. Anyway, so I'll unbolt it and we'll see what it sort of looks like. I'll unbolt that front tail shaft. We don't need that in the way there at the moment. Like, we're going to pull a motor and transmission out to get that diff sort of moved. So anyway, let's get this cross member out, and then it's time to knock off. Anyway, let's get into that. Done a little bit of mucking around with this cross member. Just so happens that if I've just turned it like completely around 180, and it's in really close to in alignment where it needs to be, and some of the bolt holes line up. Like that one's like a hair's breadth from it, so just a file in the hole and I'll be able to use the original bolt and the nut. And the other side, it's got one in there as well. So what I will do is just cut off that extra tab and then weld it onto the side of the chassis, and it'll pick up that second hole there. And same with this side. I'll just cut this extra bit off. Get out of the light. I'll cut this extra bit off the outside and weld it on the inside, and we'll just drill a little hole right there. Not a little hole, but we'll drill a 12mm hole there. We'll have 2 bolts each side, so we'll have plenty of support. And that was a bit of a win. so I don't have to muck around making another cross member or anything. So while I'm cutting all that off and mucking around, I will just make a plate that goes in here and bolts down to this, and then I can work out those rubber mounts, or one of the rubber mounts. Maybe I'll do two. I'll do a bit of fabbing work, and then I'll get back to you. So here we go. Okay, so this is where we're at the minute. It's cross members bolted in. I just haven't made a little hole there or put the bracket on that side, but the other side is all done. It's into place-ish. Same thing, I'll need a little tab there. But I've tidied it all up under there, and I've worked out exactly how I'm going to do it. And this is it. This is the piece that bolts to the underside of the transmission, and I know that already fits, and there's a center hole that fits just like that. And this bolt goes in there. And then this piece here, this channel looking bit of thingy, fits over the top of there. Hang on. Side. So that fits on top of there, and then I just put the engine mount in there. Just put a couple little wheels and we have a transmission mount. And that other piece, I'll tack this a bit more together and I'll bolt it all into place, and then I'll show you what I mean. So hang on, here we go. That's all bolted into place in the way of under there. So that's all bolted in. And all I have to do is lower the whole transmission, this whole thing here. So I'll lower it down to the correct height, and then I can put a couple of tacks on it. It actually don't look too bad. Put a clamp on it, squitch it in a bit, and then I can put a couple of welds in there, and that will be considered done. And then I'll have to probably pull it off and then paint it and all that. Let's lower it down a bit and put a couple of beads of weld on it. So here we go. Okay, we're going down. Perfect. Okay, so it's all tacked into place, and we'll lower it down and make sure everything's all good. Oh, beautiful. No sling. It's all in place. Tacked in, of course. So what I will do now is I'll quickly unbolt it off camera and weld it up on the bench, and then put a bit of black stuff on it, throw it back in there. So here we go. She's all done. Well, the cross member is all done. You like that bit of bracketry? All bolts on and everything. Sort of just moved it a bit forward, basically. It's got 2 bolts. The factory one had 4, but I'm happy with 2 because a lot of cars I've had and dismantled have always had 2 on each side, 2 bolts I mean, and they're 12 mils, they're not little 3/8 sort of things. So that's all done under there and painted. Also splashed a little bit of paint around the place while I had the spray can out. Brackets that I'd done, this is all in place. This one's more hidden because the bolting configuration is on the inside. It's really hard to see because it's, there we go, sort of, it's so shiny. All bolted in. There's the original one. I'd have to say the motor transmission is finally mounted and in exactly the right spot. I'll drop the body down in a sec and we'll have a little look-see, but those mounts, all of them, all 3 different mounts were a challenge in themselves, and they're all rubber mounted and we're still level. So, and not too far back on a tilt. And if you have a look at the pinion angle, I think they call it, we're still pretty good. Anyway, so let's drop this body down, eh? Here we go.